Good evening, everyone. Good evening. All right, I would not be an official, I would not be Detroiter if I did not also greet you with our official Detroit welcome. What up, though? What up, though? So my name is Nicole Brown. I am the proud board chair of Transportation Riders United, and on behalf of our board and our incredible team here under the leadership of Megan, we want to thank you all so very much for taking time out of your evening to come and spend it with us this evening. Who is excited to learn about the state of transit? We have first and foremost, because it is so packed. And also to all the people who are here, I also want to give a greeting to our amazing attendees who are attending this session virtually on Zoom. Thank you so very much for logging in. We're excited to have you all join us this evening. And speaking of a packed agenda this evening, we have all kinds of updates for you all. We are so fortunate to be able to have our big four transit providers here in the Metro Detroit region to be able to join us and provide updates on the amazing work that they're doing, discussing some of the challenges that they're overcoming, and really thinking about what the future of transit looks like in Metro Detroit. So we're so excited to be able to welcome representatives from the Regional Transit Authority, from the Detroit Department of Transportation, from the QLINE, and from the QLINE. So we're so excited to be able to have them here. But also, what I am really excited about, you all may have heard about this little report that the Growing Michigan Together Council put out called Growing Michigan Together. And one of the big things that came out of that report was a resounding need for public transportation across our great state. And so we're really excited today to be able to welcome some of our elected officials to be able to come and speak to the caucus that they're developing and really the work that has been long overdue in terms of really moving the needle on public transportation here in our great state of Michigan. We're looking to attract and retain talent. We have got to make sure that no matter if you are able to drive, if you want to drive, or just don't want to, you have an option to not to drive. How many of us have had those days where you're like, I don't want to get in my car. I just want to be able to take the bus, get on light rail, be able to take the train, whatever that does not require me to be able to get into my car and physically drive. And also save a little money along the way. And the work that we do here at TRU, we are grounded in being able to support all of those providers, being able to support our state legislators. But we cannot do that without making sure that we are listening to the voices on the ground of our everyday residents, our bus riders, who are really the heartbeat of the work that we do, and everything that we do is really for you all and helping to move our state forward. So we are really excited to be able to provide an amazing evening of updates for you all, but to also have your stories shared. So throughout the evening, you will hear from some riders who look just like you. They are your neighbors, your friends, your colleagues, your kids, and they're going to share with you what transit means to them and why this particular topic is so critical to the future of our state. And so, before I go on and continue to bore you all to death, I do want to take a moment to be able to recognize the amazing sponsors and those who really are providing us the opportunity to be able to continue to do this work within the Metro Detroit region. So please forgive me in my old eyes that I have here and having to look up a little bit of information. This work, as we all know, is tireless, and it cannot be made possible without the support of generous funders. And so, to that note, we really would like to be able to thank the following sponsors for allowing us to be able to have support to continue to do this important work. So first, we would love to be able to thank the South Lead Hands Foundation for their generous, ongoing 20-plus year support of TRU. Thank you so very much. We'd also like to thank the Fourth and Greenlining Foundation, the GM Foundation, as we are sub-grantees through the RAM network, and also the Energy Foundation. We'd also like to thank the State Office of Economic Development at Wayne State Office of Economic Development here at Tech Town. Thank you all so much. You all love this beautiful venue. Yes. like this. And then also, last but not least, we want to thank you. As much as we have this work is funded through generous donations of the philanthropic sector, and through institutions like Wayne State and Textown, this work would not be possible without the generous donation of our members, of our supporters. So if you donated $5 to thousands of dollars, each one of those dollars made a difference. It allowed for us to be able to fund civic engagement work. It allowed us to be able to do the incredible work that Joel and the team does on our Transit Tuesday talks. It allows for us to be able to do all the things in terms of just getting the newsletter out, making sure that you all are aware of the important, critical legislative changes and updates that are happening. And it also helps to be able to fund the advocacy work that we do here at TRU. Last but not least, before I get off to this stage, I do want to take a moment to be able to recognize 3 amazing supporters of TRU who unfortunately passed away last year, but their indelible impact on the work of TRU, their passion for transit advocacy within our great region is something that deserves to be paid attention to. I just ask for a moment of silence as we recognize the lives of these 3 amazing transit advocates who are gone too soon. Brother Tom Simpy, Janice Baker, Janice Barber, and Mark Landers. Forgive me, my old eyes here. We'll take just a moment of silence. Thank you. Now, to move us along the program, I'm going to introduce our incredible, powerful, I would dare to say, one of the most powerful women in transit in the state, Megan Owens.
All right, let's get rolling with this event. So we had a powerful agenda planned for you tonight. We have 2 very esteemed panels of both state policymakers as well as leaders of our transit agencies. We're going to hear some bus driver perspectives. We've got a little bit of TRU business to get through electing some excellent new board members, and we'll talk about ways to get involved. We unfortunately aren't going to have time for audience questions, but I really want to invite everybody. If you're on social media, then share your thoughts. What is your opinion on the state of transit? Tag @Detroit Transit and hashtag State of Transit, and let us know. So, let's see if hey, the clicker's working. Never can tell. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk through what is the state of transit. Well, TRU really believes that everyone should be able to get where they need to go. And that's why we educate, advocate, and mobilize for more and better public transportation throughout the greater Detroit area. But what does more and better transit really mean? I'm sure our transit providers hear 100 different demands every day for very different things. And while all are relevant, not everything's equally essential. Just like TRU has to prioritize what we fight for, I started thinking about the hierarchy of needs. Y'all seen this? We all need food, water, shelter, and then we need safety, then love and dignity, and to truly be fulfilled, personal growth and beauty. Well, I developed a transit hierarchy of needs to communicate some of that same concept. First, transit must be available in a community, to be physically and financially accessible to everyone. Then it needs to be reliable, safe, and on time. Once those are achieved, it needs to be, transit should really be convenient, something that works in your life, that's frequent, that's available where and when you need it. Very good transit is also attractive. Something that's got fast service and dedicated lanes and comfortable shelters. The very best transit is preferable to driving in many cases with premium, high-speed service, integrated payments, interesting art, other features. Ideally, every transit system would have all of these features, but we know that the base pieces are the most essential. And our region has been making some important progress in these areas. Transit is finally available in communities like Novi, Wixom, and elsewhere in Oakland. So a huge bravo to the elected officials, the campaign volunteers, and the voters who made that happen. Next up, service can be expanded to Rochester and beyond. SMART's also working to pave the stops around those stops to make sure transit is truly accessible for everyone. And then, maybe it's time to take on the gaps in Wayne County. Reliability has been the biggest struggle. In terms of reliability, both here and nationwide, transit agencies have struggled since the pandemic, and even more recently, to really hit all of their scheduled service, largely due to a driver shortage. That's been our region's biggest barrier for more than a year, and it's one that TRU has worked really hard to counter with our State of Our Service report, a couple rallies, hundreds of riders who mobilized, and we're starting to see some real progress. Sorry, trying to get these mics loud enough, but not fully away. DDOT has made some substantial progress in the paratransit, making it more reliable for the most vulnerable in our community. The QLINE has improved its reliability with a dedicated transit lane and enhanced signal timing. We also applaud Mayor Duggan and Council for raising driver wages for DDOT. Now, whether that'll be enough remains to be seen, but it's a critical step in the right direction. And SMART is also in active negotiations for a major wage increase, potentially the highest in the state, but we're still no word on when.
$30.
And that wasn't just one of the activists, that was from someone from SMART. That wasn't just an aspiration. These wage increases really should be enough to attract more drivers, make it a more competitive job, enabling truly reliable bus service so riders don't have to wait around in the cold anymore, not knowing if the bus is going to show up. We're also seeing some improvements in convenience. The Detroit to Ann Arbor Express bus is great. With more than a dozen trips a day, it's a really convenient way to connect these two cornerstones of our region. Heck, get some of our true staff in every week. DDOT is also enhancing the Jefferson route to provide frequencies that will really work around people's lives, as opposed to working and people having to work their lives around the bus schedule. And we might have a chance to see some really attractive transit. RTA piloting a long sought-after Airport Express. Uh-oh, come on now, there we go. The Airport Express could truly be a truly high-quality, high demand service connecting between downtown and the airport. And that's just a sampling of some of the progress that has been made. We certainly still have more work to do in this region, but I deeply believe the transit agencies are doing everything within their budgets to do the best they can, but major barriers still remain. I know this chart is not new or shocking to anyone who's been around TRU for a while. Our region continues to spend just 1/3 of what most major metropolitan areas spend on transit. And you're never going to have a truly world-class transit system if your funding is declining. Both local and state dollars have been declining, and we've really got to turn that around. For decades, the state has either not been funding transportation or has been putting it almost exclusively into roads and neglecting transit. That can and that must change. Yes. That is why TRU has been fighting for more than 20 years for more and better transit. In addition to bringing riders and leaders and activists together like this, TRU works in three primary ways. We educate the public and decision makers, stakeholders, the media, about the need for and solutions to transit. We really use our network of riders and allies and do research into the best practices in transit to develop concrete policy solutions, and then we advocate for those solutions to the policymakers that can make them happen. And we mobilize. We can't do this alone. We've got a lot of amazing partners in this room. We're most effective when we bring supporter voices together around meaningful solutions. So, over the past year, there you go. TRU educated, not only our Transit Tuesday talks that I know a lot of folks are out to, but our research reports, our policy white papers, news coverage. We advocated for especially a boost in state transit funding. We held legislative breakfasts. We brought groups up to the Capitol. We mobilized thousands of people to speak out to their legislators. And with help from some of the legislative champions we have here, we won the biggest transit investment in our state's history last year. So that was really exciting. Thank you. There we go. And we mobilized bus riders, drivers, and other supporters to really push Smart and DDOT and the decision makers to resolve this no-show bus crisis and boost driver wages through rallies, media stories, constantly speaking out at city and Smart meetings. Transit leaders have now all acknowledged that driver pay must be increased to be truly competitive. And we've got even more planned for this coming year. We are absolutely going to be educating. We're going to focus on the key role that transit plays as a climate solution as both the region and the state develop climate action plans in the next 2 months and decide how to spend tens or maybe even hundreds of millions of dollars. We'll also educate about the role of transit in tourism, in making Michigan a more attractive place and a more affordable place for people to live and work. Transit's got to be a part of that solution. We will absolutely continue advocating, working with our legislative champions here and across the state to make sure the state continues to provide for those transit investments and develops a long-term funding solution to ensure the state is investing in the transit we know is so important. And we'll continue to mobilize. We started mobilizing our members to arrange meetings with their legislators to talk transit. We're working with a great network of organizations to develop policy solutions to get MDOT and state transportation to be part of the solution as opposed to part of the climate crisis. And we're launching a Friends of Transit network. We know there's a ton of organizations, institutions, and businesses who all agree that transit's very important. Well, we want to be your transit advisor. We'll keep you updated. We'll give you meaningful opportunities to get involved. Metro Detroit didn't get to the point in transportation where we are now overnight, and we won't solve it overnight either. But with dedicated legislative champions, hardworking transit agency leaders, and all the riders, advocates, and activists working together collaboratively, this could be an incredible year, and the start of a transportation system that truly does work for everyone to get where they need to go. So that's my perspective on the state of transit. Over the next 90 minutes, you'll hear from another 12 plus people, bus drivers, agency leaders, state policymakers. And again, we love your input on social media, #SaveTransit. Now before I wrap up and move on to the next pieces of our night, I want to make sure to take a brief moment to introduce some of TRU's amazing staff. Unfortunately, Joel Batterman and Karen Boyd, that many of you know, are both out on medical leave. But if you haven't, Petra is our awesome new design specialist, working hard tonight to make sure to manage all of our AV and make sure everyone tuning in from home can follow along. So thank you, Petra, for all that AV. We've got a powerhouse team of outreach and engagement folks, Thomas and Aaron and Lucas, who are all out, at least part-time, connecting through the community and mobilizing more and more people to be involved in transit. And couldn't do it without Deb Freer, TRU's Assistant Director, Partnerships Manager, and my right hand in an awful lot of things. So I'd like to invite Deb up for a few minutes before we move along. Thank you.
Wow, we did a lot of work last year. When you got your nose to the grindstone, you don't look up and you see all the work that you've done. But spending all that time getting people together and trying to get people to see eye to eye and to agree on things. Anybody that's worked in public policy knows that that's not an easy thing to do. Bringing everybody together to make something happen. And I am very fortunate to be able to work with Megan. She just pushes on through and she makes things happen. And I'm very, very honored to be able to work with her to make public transit better in our community and in our state. Ultimately, we do work in the Detroit area, but of course our work takes us to the state legislatures, and it affects a lot of the 78 transit agencies here in Michigan. And all that work takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort, and putting events on like this does cost a little bit of money these days. So we are so grateful to all of you for being here and supporting TRU's work, and to all of our virtual attendees who have supported us as well. Megan talked about the great volunteers. We've got a great number of board members that really care about the work that we're doing, as well as the elected officials that we work with, and the riders who are amazing. I'll tell you what, they turn out for Earth Day like nobody's business. And we're just so blessed to have them. We've got a lot more work to do, and I think everybody in the room knows that. So I would just ask you to please keep us in mind when you're doing your personal giving, and maybe set like a calendar reminder once a month to call your legislator and say, hey, what's going on with public transit? I know that I've started doing that, and boy, do I know my legislators. And they know me. So thank you all again very much for coming tonight, and please, if you find our work valuable, if you see the progress that we're making, please continue to support our work. We are working very hard to grow TRU over the next 3 years. That is a stated goal by our board, and we need more phenomenal people, and we need to attract the best talent by also offering good living wages. So anything that you can do to help us out would be greatly appreciated. And thank you so much for all the things that you already do. Thank you so much.
Well, good evening, everyone. So great to see so many familiar and new faces to me here tonight, so welcome. My name is Greg Jacob. I am a board member at TRU, and my day job is the manager of community relations at Henry Ford Macomb Hospital out in Macomb County. At Henry Ford, our vision of the future includes a robust public transit system as a component of our healthy communities, a system that is accessible, reliable, and equitable. And that is part of our vision. That vision is also is shared by first we have Senator Mallory, who represents much of southeast Oakland County and northeast Detroit, and serves as the Senate Majority Whip. She is the chair of the Senate's Economic and Community Development Committee, and also serves on the Oversight, Elections, and Appropriations Committees. Regardless of having worked in auto design and marketing, she strongly values transit as vital to great communities, so please welcome Senator McMorrow. State Senator Jeff Irwin represents Ann Arbor and Southern Washtenaw County. He chairs the Housing and Human Services Committee and the Great Lakes and Environment and Budget Committee, while also serving on 7 other committees. You think they're pretty small. For decades, he's been a fearless fighter for public education, environmental protection, and public transit. Thank you for joining us, Senator Irwin. We are also joined by Representative Jason Morgan, who represents Ann Arbor, Northeast Washtenaw County, and parts of Oakland and Wayne counties. Vice Chair of the Transportation Budget Committee, this UP native has become a tireless champion of public transportation, leading the charge to get record state funding for transit in last year's budget. And he's just getting rolling. And we also have Representative Donavan, McKinney. He is actually special thanks for being here tonight. He is about to become a new father, not yet, but he's on the clock right now.
My phone has its own seat.
He represents Northeast Detroit, my old neighborhood where I grew up, Van Dyke and 8 Mile Road, and parts of Warren. He's been long committed to mentoring youth, fighting for good jobs, and climate solutions that benefit everyone. So welcome. Power. We're also pleased to be joined by Kolodin, Director of the Michigan Infrastructure Office. Governor Whitmer appointed him with the enormous task of maximizing federal investment in Michigan's infrastructure and making sure it is wisely spent. So we're so pleased to have him tonight, too. With these experts and their wisdom, but we only have 25 minutes to hear from them. So we will be moderated by TRU's fearless leader, Megan Owens. So I will turn it over to Megan and our panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Well, I know each and every one of you is a transit champion in various ways. Y'all have been listening to me plenty. I know folks want to hear from you. Why don't you share with us for a moment, why is transit important to you personally? I was told make sure to keep the mic close, so our folks at home can hear.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So for me personally, I lived in New York City for 10 years, and I understand how incredible it is to be able to walk out of your house and affordably access your job or a doctor's appointment or whatever the case may be. And ultimately, I think every person in Michigan at least deserves that chance, right? Like, not everyone is going to decide, hey, I want to live in Ann Arbor, I want to live in the city of Detroit. But you ought to be able to afford a life like that if you want one. So that's why I think it's important.
Why is transit important to me? Like Zach, I have lived all over the country. I lived in 5 states, and it is really hard to explain to people who've never experienced personally how freeing it is to live in a place that has a robust public transit system where you can get around at all hours of the day. You don't have to own a car if you don't want to, and pay for insurance and take it to the shop when it gets dented. It is imperative that we provide that opportunity here in Michigan. When I ran for office for the first time back in 2018, you can imagine I look like this now. When it's the middle of the summer and I have a baseball cap on and a backpack, people think I'm 12. And I would knock on people's doors and they would say, you remind me a lot of my daughter who left. Why did you come back? and how can we keep my kids here? And a lot of it is making sure that we create a connected Metro Detroit region from the city to the suburbs so people can get around, enjoy the city, get to their jobs, and build careers here.
Senator McMorrow and I think both are often mistaken for high schoolers. Everyone says we'll enjoy that one day. I'm 34, we'll see. But for me, when I think about transit, I think most folks think of buses, trains, those types of things. But for me, when I think about transit, I think about people. I think about the people who need public transit to go about their daily lives and to get to the places they need to get. I think about folks taking a bus to their job so that they can earn a modest paycheck to take care of their kids. I think about the elderly folks who might take a bus to the doctor or to get health care that they need. I think of young people who might take the bus to school or to go out on a night for a night in Detroit, or to see family or loved ones. I think about the people who are utilizing those buses and trains and any other form of transit. And I think about how important it is that we are connecting people to the outside world and to their communities. That is what transit is about. Transit is about the people of our state and connecting them to every other thing in the world that they want to access and that they need to access. And so that's what I think about when I think about transit. And so the idea that we still have to make the argument for why transit is important is still frustrating to me, because I tell people all the time, young people want transit. Young people want transit. And frankly, all people want transit. It seems like everyone tends to agree on this concept, but to actually prioritize it is a different question. So I'll stop there, but I am just so incredibly passionate about transit because it's about the people who we are working to get to where they need to go. Thanks.
So the rep's point and the senator's point, when I think about transit, I think about freedom, but more importantly, reliability and predictability and making sure you're able to plan out your life. And so I'll share this story with you guys real quick. Well, one quick point. The fastest growing population in the state of Michigan right now is 85 or older. And so, we're losing population when it comes to pretty much 25 on down. And a lot of this stems from our transit issues and inefficiencies. And for me, growing up in the northeast side of Detroit, near 7 Mile and Van Dyke, going to high school was a challenge because I didn't go to my neighborhood high school because schools at the time, had this issue. They're developing new plans for it now, and hopefully schools are becoming better in the neighborhoods. But I attended Renaissance High School, which was on the opposite side of the city in northwest Detroit. And the buses never ran literally on 7 Mile, so we would have to walk. Me and my cousin, we would walk from 7 Mile and then to the State Fair Transit Center on Woodward. Just think about this, on Woodward, right? Between 7 and 8 Mile right off the State Fair. And I would take the 8 Mile bus to Northland Mall, which is, near 8 Mile in Greenfield, and walk down Greenfield to Renaissance, which is on Mountain Drive in Greenfield. And so it would take me 2.5 hours to get to school every single day. To about 2.5 hours to get home. And so I knew growing up, I always loved the bus, but most of that time spent was just waiting. And so, I'm all in support, and that's why I joined the Transit Caucus with, the co-chairs, Rec Morgan and Rec Mike McFalls in the audience. Make some noise tonight. We need to do better. And I haven't really heard, I've heard some things in terms of investments in buses. We're trying to do everything we can, but we have to do more. This is how we're going to keep our younger generation from moving out. So I'll pass it along to our famous senator.
Donovan. Thank you, Representative. I'm not going to be able to beat McKinney and the story you just dropped on us, but I'll give my answer just very simply. Look, when I was a local official and now as a state official, my job is to try to make the community I represent and the state that I live in the best possible place for people now and people in the future. And that's literally what we should do. And so when I was first elected back in local government, one of the first things I did is to start to look around. I've traveled around the world like many of my colleagues and traveled around the country, and we look around and say the Detroit metro area has all these things going for it. You know, you can name them, it's a long list, excluding weather. And, but you know, one of the big gaping holes has been transit. For my entire life, the most important thing we could do to bring this region together and to grow this region economically has been transit, and we have failed time and time again to get it done. And it's not because of a lack of good ideas, it's because of a lack of political will. So I decided I was going to apply my political will to trying to change that. And you know, I think it's as simple as this. When you connect people, good things happen. Good things happen socially. Good things happen socially, good things happen culturally, good things happen economically. And here we are in Southeast Michigan, which is still, unfortunately, one of the most segregated regions in the entire country. Transit could help with that. And our lack of transit is a big reason why people are stuck in cycles of poverty right now. So transit is important socially. It's also important culturally. You know, we talk a lot about economics, but sometimes we forget about the jobs and the joy that comes from cultural development, that comes from arts and science, nightclubs, you know, people going out and enjoying music or painting or ice skating and recreation, all these kinds of things that people enjoy to make their lives better. Transit connects them to that. And it's also incredibly important economically.
We've been talking about economic development in Lansing a lot over the course of the last year. It's been a huge focus of this administration. And my goal is that we continue the progress we've been making by taking transit and making that a key component of our economic development strategy in Michigan, because it is the key missing component right now.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And that was actually a great segue talking about political will. Well, transit's obviously a very local issue in many ways. The state plays a really vital role in both funding and guiding transportation throughout the state. I was hoping each of you could share one or maybe two things that you're working on that might help improve or expand transit throughout the state.
Yeah, I'll give two really quick ones. One, just in my local area, because I think a lot of this gets very, very tactical. I'm trying to work with the State Department of Transportation and the local officials to make sure that when we rebuild Washington Avenue, we do it in a way where we don't end up with a strode, with a road that doesn't contribute to our community, and that instead we end up with a throughway that grows the economics and allows more people to interact with it. At the state level, I'm working on some legislation to try to fix our regional transit authority legislation. Now, I would encourage anyone in the audience who has ideas about how we should do that to communicate with me. But right now, I'm really focused on fixing one of the problems with that legislation. So I was there in Lansing as a state representative when that bill was passed. I believe it was fall of 2012. And when it was passed, there was a provision put in there that basically makes it impossible for us to have rail here in Southeast Michigan. Now, I think that if we're going to have a transit system, it should be a balanced system, and we should invest in the types of modes that make sense, and different modes might make sense in different areas. But because we have that prohibition, or a basic prohibition, a supermajority required for investing in anything rail, that just takes that off the table completely. It takes an option off the table for our region, and I just think that's a mistake.
My district covers the Van Dyke corridor, mainly going through northeast Detroit, Warren, and Centerline. It touches Sterling Heights. And so I have this idea that I've been pitching to the county commissioners, county execs, the mayors of the cities, to connect that Van Dyke corridor, because it connects 3 of the top 4 most populous cities across Michigan. One of, Sterling Heights being the fourth largest, Warren being the third largest, Detroit being the largest. And one of the things that we're working on too is this big Iron Belt Trail, right? This state trail that goes across all the way north side of Michigan, all the way to the west side into our area, and it's coming down Van Dyke. And so there's already going to be work on, making sure that we create those bike lanes and create those walkways and pathways. But why not make sure that people can easily walk down and path, and also build maybe some bus rapid transit, maybe some rail, I'm not sure, but we're trying to figure out the cost of all of that. I know the biggest focus is, fixing the damn roads, but in reality, roads aren't just what we need to be fixing and prioritizing. We need to do a lot more than just fixing the roads. We need to make sure that people are connected and they are able to get down these corridors, especially cross-county. Because, I believe that 8 Mile is no longer a border. And I'm going to be honest, we in this redistricting process and all that, can't speak too much on that part, but one of the good things about redistricting that has happened, it created an environment where we're all in rooms together. That has probably never have happened in the history of these districts. They're crossing, commercial corridors and bringing people together and having these conversations, talking about, hey, you know what, you were in Macomb County, you know what, if you win, we all win. If Detroit wins, we all win. It's not Detroit versus everybody, suburbs versus Detroit. This is one region. We need to figure out ways to come together. And so, oh, thank you. But this is real serious. And so this is one of my passions, and I'm supporting Senator Irwin in a lot of initiatives, but that Van Dyke corridor, I think, hopefully comes to fruition and comes to light, because it's going to be a lot of good things that come from it. So I'll pass it along to Rep. Morgan.
I think Rep. McKinney makes a really excellent point about these new districts bringing folks together. The district that I won in Ann Arbor, downtown Ann Arbor, previously was only in the city of Ann Arbor. I now have downtown Ann Arbor and the University of Michigan and parts of Wayne and Oakland counties. Somewhat surprising in the process to see that district change so much. But it's been amazing because I get to be part of the Wayne County delegation, the Oakland County delegation, work with folks in this region and think about things in a much broader policy and budget-focused way that isn't just siloed into our own individual districts. This is about helping our entire region, helping our entire state. Frankly, that's how we should have all operated in the first place, where we're not just thinking about ourselves or our individual city that we live in, but all of our communities in the state. So there are two big things that I've been working on, and this has been the thing that I've been most passionate about as a legislator. Representative McFall and I are organizing a transit caucus. We're very excited about that. We have 36 members of the legislature, including all three folks up here, along with me, that have signed on to join us in that endeavor, including some bipartisan support. We have at least one Republican who's joined us, who's interested in transit. We'll take it. And my hope is that we could actually get some more too, because I think if we really look at transit in a much broader way, I think we really can appeal to a lot of folks who may not otherwise think of themselves as transit advocates. But our hope is to bring together everyone who cares about transit. Right now we're at 36, that's like a third of the legislature. I'm not that great at math, I guess, but it's somewhere around there. And so that's huge. I mean, we have a lot of folks who are passionate about this, who are interested in figuring out how they can work together to support. The second thing that I'm working on, again with Rep. McFall and other colleagues here, is coming up with some strategies to invest long-term in public transit. One of the kind of bills that we've been looking a lot at right now is developing a bill to significantly boost local bus operating funds. We had quite the endeavor last year, trying to make sure we had support for the local bus operating funds. But one of the things that we found in talking with transit agencies and talking with advocates like Megan and her team and others is that we have funds available in the state budget already that should be going to transit from the auto-related sales tax. We have funds that are in the budget intended for transit. We're using them for the general fund. We want to capture and reclaim those funds for transit. That's going to be $250 million a year that should be going to transit. Buses, rail, and everything else. We should be able to pull those funds and keep them protected for transit. Boost the state investment in local bus operating, match at least 50%, not up to 50% of local bus operating funds. Massively increase that funding by $150 million a year, and really invest in transit using the dollars that are already there and available for transit funded in the state budget. This isn't a tax increase, it's not taking money from some other specific program, it's pulling it from the general fund. These are dollars that are already there. This is just one of the ideas that we're looking at as we hear a lot of great ideas and input from folks. So that's what we're exploring, that I've been working hard to develop a bill for. But we have to invest majorly in this long term if we're going to make something big happen.
So you've heard a lot of great ideas up here, and I just want to share a little bit of what I learned last year. So last year, if you watched any of the news, Democrats took control of the legislature for the first time in 40 years, the Senate especially. And so this was my first time serving in a majority position in control of the budget, in control of a committee, chairing the Economic and Community Development Committee. And as we talked about transit, something that was a real eye-opening moment for me was all of the municipalities that I represent talked about transit as really important. But then when they submitted their budget request to me, not a single one of my municipalities asked for money to fund it. And I don't blame the municipal leadership, because there's, parks and community centers and all kinds of these things that are, again, to Morgan's point, within your local community that you need funded. But it points to this challenge of we've been so decentralized, and the RTA hasn't been given the funding and the authority and the support that it needs to serve in the role that it was intended to serve, which is to be that unifying body, that if you don't ask for it in the budget, it's like it doesn't exist. We can pass policy all day long, but unless you fund it, it's not a real thing. So we fought really hard. I asked for significantly more than $20 million in last year's budget, but we got $20 million, and that is significantly more than nothing. And it is a step in the right direction. And then as the chair of the Economic Development Committee, something that I have been really passionate about is trying to push us to understand that we cannot incentivize our way out of our shortcomings. We know that when companies are looking at places where they're going to expand or invest or move to, talent is far and away the number one thing they look for. And there is no dollar amount that we could throw at any company that's going to make up for that. When Amazon was looking at cities around the country for Amazon HQ2, the state of Michigan put up $4 billion in incentives to lure Amazon to locate their second headquarters here. And we lost. Not only did we lose, we weren't even in the top 20. And they said it's because you don't have talent and you don't have transit. The places that won were New York City, because it's New York City, and Northern Virginia. But what Virginia did that was so fascinating was they offered $500 million in incentives, which is still a lot of money. But they invested more than $1 billion directly in education from K-12 up through a new campus of Virginia Tech, and they expanded transit in Northern Virginia. And that was the selling point, that the incentive was kind of the last push, but it was the investment in the people and the talent and the place that was the selling point for this company. So we are getting lapped right now by states around the country who are adopting this new approach. So I, through my committee, am trying to show transit investment is economic development, and we have to get out of this mindset that it is just giving money to companies and hoping for the best.
Thank you so much for the investment in transit, because I think it's going to be really transformative going forward. As the Chief Infrastructure Officer for the Governor, I think it's not obvious why I care so deeply about transit. You could kind of imagine a world where that's different. But fundamentally, our infrastructure is about creating space for people to live the way that they want to live. And I think what we've heard all over the state is that people want to feel safe, they want to feel connected, they want to be able to use the roads in a way that, that sort of facilitates a high quality of life. They don't necessarily have to dodge vehicles as they cross the street, right? And we're in Detroit, so we understand what that feels like. And fundamentally, transit is about using that infrastructure as shared space. There's nothing more shared than a bus, carrying a group of people down the street and all disembarking or getting on the bus in the same place. And to make that work, you have to build infrastructure that facilitates safe connections to those places. It's actually really, it's wonderful that you're here at McKinney, but it's a very sad story that you had to endure that just to get to Renaissance. So, that's what I'm really passionate about in this space. And I think that what we're doing to make that a reality most immediately is the work that we've done around advancing corridors for transit with the RTA, with the match money that Senator McMorrow made available. We are making our corridors ready for transit, right? We're building the infrastructure that is needed to make people feel safe and comfortable in those spaces, and also creating a plan for building out bus rapid transit on the most significant corridors in the state of Michigan. So I think that's what I'm most excited about, and it really is just a first step to what I hope is ultimately a corridor plan that can build full BRT or BRT light on all of our major corridors.
Excellent. I knew this was going to go by way too fast, and I had 3 more questions that we're not going to get to, but because I know several of our panelists have other events they need to jump to. But we know there's enormous support for transit, but a lot of transit projects improvements have gotten close, but haven't quite gotten over the finish line. I wanted to see if either share some closing remarks that you might have, or if you can, how can transit supporters here in the room and with us virtually and through the region, how can we best come together to really make that change? How do we make sure we're moving beyond the talk and into the action? So if you can share that or any other closing remarks, I'd love to hear from each of you one more time.
Well, I'll let the politicians speak to the politics.
It's a joke, but the politics is important. The fact that, and huge credit to the representatives for pulling a caucus together for the first time, because I feel like, this is my 5th year in Lansing. I feel like sometimes it's just like me and Jeff yelling at each other about transit quietly in caucus, and it's not organized in any way, but there is power in numbers. So we saw how close the RTA initiative came in 2018. It was so close. And I felt like it took the wind out of the sails, and people didn't believe that it was possible. Now, there's also the challenges of how the RTA legislation was set up, and the fact that you need, votes from the Tri-County area to get it done that we could work through. But the fact that you're all here, the fact that we are building this transit caucus, keep making calls, keep posting about it, because political will is what pushes things in the right direction. The fact that we are creating a caucus, you guys are creating a caucus that we have 36 members of, there's going to be one loud voice in Lansing, finally, hopefully saying mostly the same things to the rest of our colleagues. And that can't be understated, but we're going to need all of your support to stand behind us when we're going to bat for budget asks and policy moves. Because people in these jobs, we're accountable to you at the end of the day. And it needs to be very clear that this is an issue that voters care about, and if you do not take action on it, you'll be voted out of office.
I think that's spot on. We've got to make transit a priority. I'm accused of being an optimist all the time, but I am really more optimistic than ever about the potential for major investments in transit. And I believe it's because of the folks up here. I believe it's because of the folks who are leading the legislature and the governor's office today. I feel like everything is possible. And it all rests on whether we make it happen or not. And I think all of you, along with folks all over the state who are advocates for transit, from here to the UP, to Grand Rapids, Lansing, every part of the state, making your voices heard to your legislators, to all of our legislators, to all of us, to tell everyone that transit is a top priority.
that we have to invest in transit, and asking them, when our goal is to work together and put forward some things that you can get behind and support, and then to do that in partnership with all of you. All the ideas that we've come up with so far, at least that I've been a part of, have come from a lot of the advocates in this room, and Megan's been an incredible voice for that. So we're going to need to work together. We're going to need to advocate very strongly, make that case to all of our legislators to prioritize transit, and that's all we can do. I mean, we've got to just push as hard as we can collectively together, and we're going to work our hardest to get some really good things together for you to hone in on.
Some closing remarks. Think about this. Just about 50 years ago, so 5 decades ago, our region had the opportunity to build comprehensive mass transit across the Tri-County area. The federal government at the time gave our region millions, multi-million dollars to build transit. What happened, as you guys, maybe some know, maybe some don't, that our region couldn't come together. So Oakland counties and Macomb County, they sent their money back to the federal government. Detroit kept its share and built what is now known as the People Mover, because it was cheaper to build above ground at the time than underground. And so when the money got sent back to D.C., the federal government reappropriated those dollars to the city of Washington, D.C., and they built their metro system off of that, which they have now, the DMV area can now enjoy. And so that was supposed to be us 50 years ago. Like, I don't know if you guys knew that, the history behind that. But when I learned the history, when I figured out, like, wow, it's because of regional, we get in our own way a lot of times. And so this is an opportunity, a clear opportunity, to make sure that this transit caucus, 36 members, will expand on it. But more importantly, we get our federal government in support, we get our counties aligned, we get the locals behind it, and we get you guys behind it. The more people that's talking about making sure that we can come together as one region, instead of the infighting that has happened in the past, the easier it will be and the easier we can overcome. Because I believe transit is literally the single most thing that is hurting Michigan. It's our biggest Achilles heel. And if we can overcome that, I think this region will start to grow, and you'll see a lot of our young people and our talent coming here and staying here. And I'll say this too, and I'll pass it off to the senator, is that the largest thing I heard on the Doors campaigning in the summer of 2022 was that I want my kids and grandkids to move back to Michigan. And literally, it was more, and you guys remember 2020, it was abortion, was talking about gun safe, all of this stuff, right? But the largest thing I heard on the Doors was that I want my family to move back. And sad to say, I had to tell folks they're not moving back until we give them something to move back to. And that's going to be transit. And so we have to do our due diligence around this. And you guys got my support wholeheartedly, but we need to come together and get this done.
I guess I'm going to close by thanking all of you for being here. I mean, really what I think a lot of us have been talking about in terms of what needs to happen is to generate the political will to make this a priority for decision makers across the board, local government, state government, beyond. And TRU is going to be a big part of that. So I want to thank you for supporting TRU, because what we need to do is we need to raise our voices all over the region. And one critical aspect of that is supporting organizations that can bring that together and can help bring the region together and bring people together. So don't just keep supporting TRU, but think about whether there are friends or other people in your life who care about transit, who care about Metro Detroit, who care about the future of this region, and who might be willing to support TRU as well, because supporting good organizations that are pushing this issue is important. And then I just want to call on you individually just to think about this issue in the context of other issues. There are a lot of things out there in the political environment where the public overwhelmingly believes in something, but it never happens. And the reason is because there's a mismatch of intensity. And one of the reasons why when Governor Whitmer was running for office for the first time, she adopted that slogan, "Fix the damn roads." Why did she adopt that slogan? Because she heard people with great intensity talking about this issue wherever she went. We need to make sure that our elected officials at the local and state level hear about this issue wherever they go. We need to make sure that when legislators have town halls, and I've got one in Tecumseh in a couple weeks, that someone shows up and asks the question, what are you doing to advance public transit in Southeast Michigan? Where does transit rate on your list of priorities? What kind of legislation are you working on to improve transit in Southeast Michigan? Not enough of us get those kinds of pointed questions from people. And it's not just in town halls and coffee hours. It's not just sending them an email asking them where they stand and encouraging them to stand in the right place. You also have to chase on social media too, right? Because I'll tell you, that's a really powerful place. It's like a virtual town hall where other people are going to see your question. And they're going to see the answer or the non-answer from these elected officials who work for all of us. And so I just want you to raise your voice. I want you to get more intense. I want you to keep asking about transit more. Because right now, we have not overcome the inertia that we have in this region. Our voices are not loud enough. We're not asking enough pesky questions. We're not, putting these public officials in a position where they have to take a position on this issue. Where they're wondering, how am I going to deliver for my residents on this issue? That's how we have to make it.
So I would be remiss if I failed to mention that we do have an unprecedented opportunity to capture federal funding for any number of infrastructure priorities, including transit, including rail. I guess I would say a couple things about that. Number one, we have the opportunity at any point to apply for capital investment grant funding for transit. What we need is, as Ben at the RTA well knows, what we need is a plan, and we need a fiscally sustainable plan. So ultimately, funding unlocks capital, right? That's also true in the rail space. The federal government created the Restoration and Enhancements Grant Program for rail, which is the capital program that follows on the Corridor ID program, which Michigan won, I think, 3 designated corridors in the most recent cycle. What we need to actually build those corridors out is funding for rail, right? And I think what a lot of people don't understand about rail specifically in this region is that unlike in New York, Boston, Virginia, places on the Acela corridor, Amtrak doesn't pay for our rail, right? We pay for our rail. So we got to figure out sustainable funding models to build out service and improve frequency and make the connections that are missing. So I guess what I would say is I do hope, and I'm pushing every day for us to capture as much transit and rail capital as we can through the bipartisan infrastructure law and even the Inflation Reduction Act. But what we need to actually open new services is sustained revenue sources. And that is sort of the key political barrier to moving forward.
Give these folks a big hand. We have an amazing set of champions here. We have an amazing set of champions here who we will be hearing a lot more from in the coming weeks and months and years. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. All right, we're going to see if we can get the tech working to show you a quick video with a rider perspective, and then we'll switch gears to our transit agency panel. So let's take a quick moment to hear our video.
Jobs that did not allow me to purchase a home for a vehicle. All right, hi everybody. We're going to move into the next panel now. So my name is Corey Rowe. I'm the Vice President on TRU's Board of Directors. And I'm also on the Policy Committee for TRU. And if there's one thing I know how to do as a transit rider, it's how to keep an eye on the time and how to move quickly. So we're going to get right into it. So we have a panel of 5 transit agency leaders that we're going to be talking to. So if they're here, if they want to come up to the stage so I can introduce them, go ahead and come on up.
Just keep going while they come up.
All right. So the 5 panelists we're going to have tonight are going to be the Interim Director of DDOT, Michael Staley, the Director of the Regional Transit Authority, Ben Stupka, the General Manager of DTC, which operates the Fleet Mover, Kramer, the Deputy General Manager of SMART, Tiffany Gelter, and President of the QLINE, Lisa Nazowski. Everybody, please welcome our panel.
All right, Steve's still warm from our legislators there. Thank you guys so much for being here. As I noted, in past States of Transit events, we've asked each of you to do a whole presentation, sharing much more in-depth updates. We won't have a chance to do that, but I think everyone will agree having a legislator speak was probably worthwhile, huh? They were pretty amazing. But I would love to hear from each of you. If you can start by sharing a little bit about what's 1 or 2 of the accomplishments of the past year that you're most proud of, or what's some progress that your agency has made over the last year?
I guess I'll go first. So at the People Mover, I think over the last year, it's been about getting things moving again. We opened the year before after a shutdown during the pandemic. We had some changes in staffing, a lot of things kind of getting back up to speed. And so just really proud of kind of getting back to basics for the People Mover over the last year. We had a good year of getting projects moving that hopefully here in the first couple of quarters of this year we'll really start to see and feel a lot of differences. And obviously going this year fare-free is something we're really excited about and are already starting to see some of those results.
I think we really started to see the payoffs for all the investments that we've made in the QLINE since we restarted passenger service in fall of 2021. So many of you probably heard me talk about the implementation of the dedicated transit lane in front of Little Caesars Arena, which is not only for the streetcar but also buses to use during heavy event traffic. We see far fewer blockages as a result of that. The implementation of signal prioritization, which has facilitated the movement of streetcars through intersections more quickly and in places where we have to change lanes to call for those signals a little bit faster. And then you add that up with us not charging fare since we restarted passenger service, I think results in the big win of having over 1 million riders in 2023. So that was very exciting. The first time since pre-pandemic and outpacing sort of recovery in transit ridership in post-pandemic and in other communities. And so we're really excited for what that means for transit and what it means for other partners up here, and looking forward to more good things to come this year.
Thank you, Lisa. That is a big deal. Trying to pare down the list to what we're most proud of, I'd say having 2 of our 4 contracts ratified at the end of last year was a very big deal for us, and we continue to move forward at a pretty quick clip on the next 2, our operators and our mechanics. I think that the kickoff of the Drive a Bus With Us event last year was another big deal for us in terms of recruitment. We know that the driver shortage is a nationwide problem, and we're doing everything that we can to really address that. While we were initially somewhat disappointed in the results of the Drive a Bus With Us event because we didn't see a huge turnout, what we are seeing is the consistent effort being applied, having the hiring events, doing them on site, being at the terminals, and consistently getting the message out there is starting to show proof of the good work that we're doing, and we're seeing a turnaround in the driver shortage, and we're really happy about that. The last one and the biggest one, I think that we were really loud about, was the expansion of the 740 into Wixom, and seeing that we're not only
Thank you. So for the RTA big wins last year, we saw continued ridership increase on the D2A2 service. We still have some more room to grow there, but seeing 50 to 75% increase every month on that service. We were able to distribute $13 million out to dozens of small providers through our 5310 program. These are providers that provide services for seniors and people with disabilities and communities throughout the region, so we were able to do that. Last year, we were able to work on a large federal grant application that Zach mentioned earlier. The wonderful thing about that application is that we worked with every person up here, every legislator that was up here. We had almost 70 letters of support. TRU was a huge advocate for putting this together. We were able to leverage some of the state money that was put in the budget last year, so we're just kind of sitting on pins and needles, waiting to hear back on that. And then I'd say the other big thing for the RTA, we staffed up quite a bit. We doubled our staff. We're still a small staff, but a powerful staff. A lot of them are here tonight. I won't make you guys raise your hands, but you can look at their name tags. And we got a new board chair, our first new board chair since the inception of the RTA. So a lot of new energy at the RTA, and really looking forward to a big 2024.
First and foremost, the increased wages for the TEOs, $3 across the board increase, as well as a $500 increase in the attendance incentive bonus. I think it's a rare opportunity where $6,000 to $8,000 can really have an impact on quality of life of some individuals. And I know that there are advocates in the audience that were strong backers of that initiative, so that's much appreciated. Second would be the beginning of the demolition and ultimately construction on the Coolidge terminal. Third would be the first modest steps on BRT on East Jefferson, and last but not least is the turnaround paratransit. DDOT brought paratransit, the critical operational functions, reservation, scheduling, dispatch, in-house in January of 2023, and by the end of the year, on-time performance had gone from mid-80s to 97%. Customer complaints are less than 1/10%. Accidents, injuries are down, and overall, the quality of the service being provided under the Americans with Disabilities Act took a huge step forward.
Clearly, these guys have a lot going on, and those are just a few of the highlights. I'm sure there's obviously a lot of work and a lot of stories and a lot of excitement around each of those. I would like to invite you to also share what's one of your biggest challenges. What's one of your biggest challenges, and what are you doing to solve it? And are there things that allies and supporters can do to help tackle those challenges?
I think the biggest one, the first one that I confronted was the driver shortage, which is pretty typical throughout the United States, and also the shortage of mechanics. So, been in the business about 40 years, haven't learned much, but I understand that if you don't have drivers, you don't have vehicles, you don't have service. So really the driver deficit, which was anywhere in the neighborhood of about 150 TEOs that we were down. Mechanics, about a third of the positions were not filled. Those are two of the biggest challenges.
So for the RTA, I really like the pyramid that Megan did earlier. So our challenge is trying to balance the very real needs that the director talked about, and I'm sure Tiffany and others will talk about, the very real needs of the services that are out there today, with some of the aspirational projects that we need to move forward as a region. So how do we strike that balance? How do we hold a coalition together that doesn't just include folks in this room and folks in the state legislature, but other providers, other chambers of commerce and all other kinds of folks, folks who want to, see light rail when we're struggling to get buses out on the street every day. When I'm happy to talk to anybody about how the airport service actually gets set up. Cleo's here today. He can talk to you about how hard it is to get a bus shelter done. So just the reality of getting these projects implemented, but having to continue to kind of carry that torch. I don't think it's a challenge. I think it's an opportunity. I think it's wonderful to be able to do that, and I'd love to be able to do it. But always trying to balance those two things. How do we kind of look to the future, but keep our feet firmly planted in the realities of today?
Thanks, Ben. In looking at the challenges, I'd say there's a couple things. One, Senator McMorrow, sitting here just a moment ago, said that transit investment is economic development, and that conversation about changing the perception of transit, while we are all chewing bubble gum, tying shoes, walking, flying, and everything else you can imagine all at the same time, really helping those that aren't inside of our echo chamber understand the importance of what we do and how it affects their lives just the same, is one of the biggest challenges I see that we have in this region, is making sure others outside of us understand it. Obviously on the hiring side, just last week we were in DC lobbying on behalf of transit in general, and one of the things is breaking down the barriers to hiring for our operators. What we do know is we have two big things that are standing in the way of greater progress, and that is one, the substance abuse testing requirement and the CDL requirement that we have for our drivers. What we see in the substance abuse space is the Department of Health and Human Services has been sitting on a Federal Register document since 2019 that allows for an oral fluid test that's a 72-hour look back versus a 45 to 60-day look back in a urine test. What we are finding is, and we recruit everywhere, we are shameless about recruiting. If we're grocery shopping, if we're in a hobby store, if we're walking our dog, we are hiring. And what we're hearing from people is they do enjoy what is considered legal in the state from time to time, and they won't even apply for a job with us because they can't pass that test. That is a barrier. We're trying to help move that forward, and our Michigan delegation has been very supportive of that. So that's something that we're, regardless of politics, we want people to work. And the CDL testing requirement, I won't get into too much detail, I know we're limited on time, but really looking at what's meant for an over-the-road truck driver and what's meant for a bus operator. And so we have a pipeline where oftentimes we find that we train people and then we send them off to do another job in the private sector, and that's not helpful to our industry, and we need to make sure that we're not so blind that we're not moving that agenda forward, at least stopping the drum where possible. So the operator side is true, and then on the sobering side is what we saw last year sitting at the same event. I was very new to SMART at the time. I think me and Robert had just exchanged the space when I was sitting before this panel before. We didn't have a team that I would say was an executive leadership team at the time. So we have a very new team. And what we're finding is when we hear at the board table from the advocates and from the public, they don't feel that there's a sense of urgency. You all have heard about the duck, right? And it may look cool up top, but it's working real hard, and that's the stuff that you don't see. And on the operations side, what I'll share with you is our team is now spending time in the terminals at the time of pullout. So we understand exactly what's happening. So when we're looking at operational efficiency to try to get us there on time, we manage by observation. We are there. We understand the impact that we have when we miss a run. That can affect somebody's life in a way that is greater than what we would experience and just, hearing from the public. I love public engagement. It keeps you honest. It gets you out of your echo chamber, and it makes you accountable. So as much as you may see sometimes that Megan and I fight, we've been doing this for 20 years. She knows I appreciate making sure that we're hearing outside of ourselves what needs to be done, because we do take it seriously, and it is a sense of urgency about it.
Yeah, I think for us, a lot of it is sort of boiling down to brass tacks issues, which we are in the most challenging part of the year for our operations, which is snow, and not necessarily as it's falling, but once it's fallen and then it gets plowed into the roadway and onto the tracks or into parking spots, and people are trying to wedge their vehicles into parking spots and hanging over the white line. So unfortunately, we're still spending a lot of time working with our partners at the city and the state on troubleshooting that. You would think after 6-7 years we would have gotten that down, but we're still working on that. But for me, and then also working with our partners like Transit Police of the City of Detroit. I know Chief Ricky Brown's here in the office. Have been very helpful with getting the streetcars moving as quickly as possible in those situations. But I think we've also, on the other hand, we know some of the treatments that can help solve for that. And I think that the dedicated transit lanes, just creating more space for transit to operate unimpeded, because buses get impacted by this as well. And so I think creating more space on our public roadways, which we have a lot of capacity. I know we think we have traffic here in Detroit, but we don't really have traffic in Detroit if you travel to other cities. And so I think using some of that capacity and dedicating that for transit only, not only facilitates movement for our passengers, but it also sends a message to everybody else who's using the roadways that, hey, transit is important. And I think kind of feeding into the previous panel's discussion was people need to hear from us. And so those who are operating, those who are riding, those who are advocating, I think that's another really powerful way to send a message to the general public that transit deserves space on the roads just like everyone else. So.
Okay, so one of the things that I really like about working at the People Mover is there seems to be a lot more puns available, so I really appreciate that. And I think Megan kind of set me up. So the top of her pyramid, which of course our system is above everyone else. Take that for now. Also included interesting art, I believe was up there. High frequencies, yeah. So those are all things we have going for us. We also don't have any drivers, so don't have a problem with that. I don't have any snow, I don't have any traffic. I have a dedicated guideway. So a lot of the challenges of my fellow transit providers we don't have to deal with. But the challenge for us, I think, really is how can we, and this is kind of something we try to work for every day at the People Mover at DTC in general, which includes Transit Police. Double shout out to Chief Ricky Brown. Is how can we contribute positively to the experience, right? So that can be people who are visiting downtown, can be people who live downtown, people who are using downtown to connect to other modes of transit, to get to the airports, to go to Ann Arbor, but also to connect people who live in the city and people who live outside of the city, connecting them together. I think Senator Irwin had a great, if you connect people, good things will happen. I made a note of that one. That was a really good quote. And so our challenge, which is kind of funny almost, is that we're here, and it's about how do we make people aware of how we can connect them using the People Mover and the resources that we have downtown. But I think from a bigger challenge standpoint, maybe again it's kind of just a different perspective, a little bit for me personally, but also at the People Mover is I still think there are more opportunities and challenges for all of us, and to have state elected officials here, our infrastructure office leader. I think there's still, the challenge still is how can we work more closely together. I really still think that there's a lot of opportunity for that. Again, maybe it's just the People Mover because we're kind of like the ugly duckling at the back sometimes. But we're here, and I think really everyone, including us, I'm committed, I know all of you are, to really keep pushing for all of us to work together better, because I really think that's the way for us to be successful.
Excellent. And again, the time goes by way too fast. I will say, I'm working with each of these guys to arrange a Transit Tuesday talk like we did before, a focused conversation with just one or two agencies so we can go into a much deeper dive on all of the amazing things that you guys are doing. But in the few minutes we have left, what's coming up? What are you looking forward to? What's happening? And I think we touched on it a little bit, but are there ways that we can be working together and supporting each other to achieve great things?
So from the People Mover, kind of back to my first comments, is this is our big time to shine, right? So a lot of what we talk about is regional. We can't be any bigger than our 3-mile loop, which sometimes is good, sometimes is bad. But the draft is coming, which is a huge event for downtown, the city, the region, the state, maybe the Midwest even. And so that's something that we are laser focused on, not just internally, making sure that our technology improvements are going to see stuff at the stations that's going to be more safe and reliable, but also have more information when the train's coming, when the QLINE's coming, if it's near our station. We're working on having that as well. But really, from a bigger perspective, with free fares, it's just helping make the region shine. And that really, there's a lot of efforts around the draft to have better coordination at all levels, whether it's with law enforcement, city services, regional connections, transit providers. I think this is really a great opportunity, but to keep the momentum going after that, I think is what's the most important thing.
Yeah, I would echo that about the draft, and I think I see 2024 as a year of partnerships. And to Robert's point, I think that we're all very much in the conversation of how we can provide more and better service for the draft and to continue that beyond. So not just have it be for 3 days or a week while a bunch of people are in town, but how can we use strategies like park and ride and apply them more broadly to get people to use transit and really kind of use that as a focal point. So I think that the partnerships that you see up here, know that we're working on those issues outside of these conversations here. Other partnerships, I would say internally, we're renegotiating our contract with the union as well this year, and we're very fortunate to have those relationships and excited to move that process forward. They represent all of our streetcar operators and our mechanics at the QLINE. And then I'd be remiss to say, exploring the partnerships with the RTA. We announced in December that the intention for the QLINE was always for it to be part of a public entity, because we're currently a nonprofit organization and we cannot take advantage of the federal operating dollars that exist to operate public transit. And so us becoming a part of a public entity has always been a part of the plan, and we are now at that point in the road where we're exploring that relationship with the RTA. And so excited to continue exploring that partnership to come.
Fantastic. Let's see. So where do I begin? Just last week at our board meeting, we took an action that I think was very significant that I want to share with everyone, and that was we amended our budget so that we would be able to fund our pension liability at 95% and our OPEB for us, and a critical move in order for us to sustain what we consider to be the most historic wage increases we have on the table right now for the long term. We are freeing up $11 million in operating a year that we were putting towards our pension liabilities that we now will not have to do going forward, so we can use that for greater things such as wages, so we can be an attractive employer. That's number one. Number two, let's see if I can get to the next thing. I got to work on my memory. We got new service that started at the beginning of this year. The 280 in Romulus connecting the business district is now in service. We're seeing some good things at the start of that service in Wayne County. We started the 561, but we extended the 561 Chesterfield to New Baltimore as well. And we have on the horizon the Rochester line, the 492 coming, and plan for it. Part of the reason we are spending our time in the terminals is make sure that we can make pullouts and get all of our service on time, but definitely have a good kickoff for that. I'll say a couple other things. We hired a general planning consultant at the end of last year. We now have a scope ready to move forward on our bus stop inventory, and that's really looking at almost 6,000 stops throughout the region and creating standards for those stops, really looking at them, making it so what we see and what we experience, even when we did the tour on the 740, was people didn't know how to use the bus. The stops aren't always right across the street from each other. As much as you can simplify usage of the system, we should. So with that, I'll try to wrap up. I'm trying to think if there's something. We are developing, in conjunction with our partners, a scope for a mobile app that will allow folks to, again, increase user friendliness on the transit system. That will definitely change the narrative. We know that when people can use this little device for their banking needs, for their email communications and everything else, your shopping, everything you can think of, if we can get it so that they can plan for, pay for, and get to their trip on this mobile device easily, we know that we have done ourselves a great service in changing the narrative on public transportation. Looking at Bernard, I think I hit everything, but I'm going to move on because we only got so much time.
Okay, let's see, I totally have my notes right there. I'm just going to see if I can channel them. Yeah. Okay, so 2024, airport service. Yeah! Woo! All right. We're going to run, trying to get that up and running by the end of March. Okay, good. And before March Madness, and certainly before the draft. So that'll be a pilot project, but we're going to get that up and running. We're still looking for ridership increases for D2A2. We are completing another update to our regional transportation master plan, which I know is not super exciting, but is actually really important to really provide kind of some guidance for what we want to see in terms of investments and priorities here in the region. So that's going to our board in 2 weeks from now. We're going to be updating what we call the Coordinated Human Service Transportation Plan. I did not name that. That's what the federal government calls it. This is, don't make me say that acronym. This is the plan that informs how we want to prioritize services for seniors and people with disabilities. So we're going to be working on that this year. We're going to be deploying towards the end of the year our first Access to Transit grant program. So this is a program focused on pedestrian and bicycle safety and shelters in and around bus stops. I will tell anybody that listens that I completely and totally stole this idea from the Chicago RTA, who's been doing it for almost a decade. So I was able to use that to convince some of our partners at SEMCOG and others to provide us some funding to be able to do that program. So we'll be launching that towards the end of the year. We're exploring our partnership with the QLINE. So that's a big piece of business we have going on. I know I'm forgetting something. Our mobility wallet pilot project. So this is a project that we got some funding from the state to do to look at having a booking app available for paying for multiple transit providers throughout the region. So yay, thanks. It's kind of a cool project. We're working with, specifically with United Way Southeast Michigan Detroit at work to pilot this service for folks who are using those services. So we're really having a job focused on that mobility wallet project. Am I forgetting anything? Anybody? Good, I got a thumbs up. Good, all right. I'm sure there's a ton more. Yeah, I got a ton more. And again, I'm waiting on that grant and just waiting. So if anybody knows anybody and wants to give a call to their elected officials, please do so. Thank you.
Two-pronged approach at DDOT for 2024. Back to basics and forward to the future. DDOT has to become safer, more reliable, and more customer-oriented. And so people in this audience, the larger general public, our ridership, as Tiffany said, we value the input. The conversations aren't always the most comfortable, but we need to get that feedback, that input, to let us know where we're meeting your expectations and even more importantly, where we're not. DDOT Reimagined, we've gotten the final draft. We're going to take advantage of the February community input meeting to turn that into a public hearing on DDOT Reimagined. There'll be details on the plan on the website beginning day after tomorrow, February 1st. So you can see a preview of coming attractions there. And then on the 15th, we'll hold the public hearing on DDOT Reimagined. And obviously, input from everybody in this audience and beyond is critical. State Fair becomes operational spring of 2024. And finally, on the paratransit front, same-day service through a grant from the RTA. We hope that will be operational no later than July 1st of 2024. Give people the opportunity to wake up on any given day, or if they get a call from their doctor's office saying their appointment's been changed, wake up, make a phone call, and get picked up in a reasonable period of time on a same-day basis. Also the introduction of IVR technology again from a grant through the RTA, so that night before, if you're scheduled to travel the next day, you'll get advance notice that you've got a trip coming up the next day, and then even more importantly, in real time, 15 to 20 minutes in advance of your pickup, you'll get a notification that the vehicle's on its way. You're the next pickup. One of the things that we hope that IVR technology will do is obviously cut down on the need for "Where's my ride" calls. So if we could reduce the call volume into the call center, which handles both reservations and "Where's my ride" calls, that the hold time for customers will decrease, and that'll improve the quality of the experience when they're interacting with the call center.
Clearly a ton of great stuff happening. Give a round of applause to this wonderful panel.
Sorry, I was going to say this. I just want to say really quickly.
Yes.
We are all, I think I'm speaking to everybody, we are all actively working with the Transit Caucus and with the state legislature. So all the folks that you heard up here, we are actively working with those folks to help make those changes, help talk to our riders and our constituents and work with them to make those positive changes. So that's, I know, heavy on all of our agendas this year as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for fitting time in to push for that legislative support, as we are all doing. So yeah, another quick thank you to these riders, or to these riders and providers. Thank you. We are not quite done. We have 3 more items before we wrap up. So if people can give us a couple more of your minutes before you gotta go. We want to hear one more rider perspective. I believe Renard is here from Detroit People's Platform to share a few words. We didn't have quite as much time as we had hoped to fit in the rider perspectives, but that's obviously an important part. And then we have some board business and a quick wrap. So a couple more minutes, and then there are more nachos and more cookies and stuff to go. All right.
Thank you, Megan. Hey, good evening, everyone. Okay. I won't keep it too long here. I just really am, I've been waiting all hour to say this. I'm a daily rider of DDOT. I use it as my primary form of transportation. Mostly ride every day and on the weekends for my errands. Most of the work, commute, go to the pharmacy, my doctor's office, accompany my partner to his doctor's office as well. I am really happy to say that DDOT is on the mend as a rider. I am seeing ridership increase. Recently they reported about up to 1 million rides in a month. That's pretty impressive. I know that there's some issues, of course, with like late time service at nighttime on the weekends or during the weekdays, but I'm very confident as DDOT, having recently raised the wages, that they're going to get more drivers on there. But in terms of where I live, I'm in Midtown Cass Corridor, so my experiences aren't as addictive as the rest of the city. I grew up in the neighborhoods, Lauder and Schoolcraft. I knew how the bus service was like then. So where I live, the buses run a little bit more frequently, and I have a lot of choice. If I can't catch the Dexter, I can catch the QLINE or the Woodward, or even the Hamilton whenever that comes around. So maybe we'll get more frequency with some of the other routes across the city, especially those that cross into the neighborhoods. I grew up on Lauder and Schoolcraft, and I would love to see the Schoolcraft run every 20 minutes, right? The Grand River was my route that I grew up along. I remember I could skip it because I could catch it in the next 10 minutes when I went to high school. And I think we're going to get to that point going into this year and next year. I took me very critical, but I'm very optimistic with the trends. The wages are increasing. We're getting more drivers coming into the school. We're keeping them, and then they're graduating, and they're hitting the road. But what we need to do is make sure that they are safe, because if our drivers aren't safe, I'm not safe. And the other thing is, too, keep investing in them. So I went to D.C. last year in December and talked to Rashida Tlaib, talked to our senator delegation, Gary Peters, and Debbie Stabenow, who's unfortunately stepping down. and Shri Tanadar, and they all agreed that operations is going to be important. So from the federal government, there's this new bill called the Strengthening Communities Through Better Transit Bill. I don't know that HR number yet. I'll get that to y'all some other time. But this is going to invest $20 billion a year, to the tune of $80 billion over a few years. I'm not going to do the math, but $20 billion a year for operations, to raise the wages for drivers, for operators of streetcars and rail all across the country. What this means for Detroit is that the wage increases are going to be sustainable. So we need to be calling up to DC, to the House, and to the Senate, and have them support this bill as well. And it's because of riders' voices, riders from all of our different organizations, Detroit People's Platform, TRU, independent advocates and riders as well, and just people from the community speaking about the need for higher wages for the drivers and higher pay. And look what that resulted in, a solution last month with the wage increases. So it's not just the politicians that you saw and the providers, it's really riders like myself, unlike myself, that use their voice to get what we need. And we need transit. And I do agree the governor fixed the damn roads, but guess what? The bus uses those roads too. So put more money into the damn buses as well. Honestly, stop funding these freeways and let's get some frequent transit. Thank you.
My goodness, how do I follow that call to action? So tonight we have heard a lot. We've celebrated some really big successes with our transit providers. We have learned a lot and been really inspired to action by our legislators. So a couple of things apparently that we have to do. One, we have to make sure that we are standing up and that we are using our voices as riders. Two, we have an election coming later this year. It's a pretty big and important election. It's not just the presidential, but we also have some pretty substantial Senate races that are also taking place. So we need to be out and about at town halls and really demanding and asking questions of the candidates about where they stand on transit and how they will be able to push transit forward here in the state of Michigan and then the federal level. And then lastly, we are also always looking at how do we motivate and how do we move forward transit through boots on the ground. So whether it is going up to the Capitol for legislative days, whether it is helping to spread the word and doing some phone banking and helping to get more people actively engaged in the fight and more, we need our volunteers to continue to be able to support transit. And speaking of volunteers, I want to take a moment to recognize my fellow Transportation Riders United board members. If you are in the audience, please stand. And so I want to thank each and every one of you. They bring such a tremendous amount of diversity of thought and perspective to the work that we do. It is because of them that we're able to support the incredible work of Megan and her team and what they do on a day-to-day basis. This group of board members I have been so fortunate to be able to work with and lead with in this fight for transit has been one of the most dynamic boards I have ever had the privilege to be able to be a part of and to be able to serve our community with. They work doggedly in terms of getting out and rolling up their sleeves and not just doing the nice, pretty work of governing a nonprofit organization, but really digging their hands and feet into the work of doing the grassroots work. And so thank you so very much for all of your dedication and service over the last year. Now on to one of the most exciting portions of our evening. Earlier this year, you should have received the email from Deb alerting you to the fact that we are going to be holding board elections this evening. So in November, we were able to start to be able to scour Metro Detroit for amazing leaders in transit, those community members who wanted to elevate their activism and be able to join the leadership board, to be able to join the leadership of Transportation Riders United. And we got a tremendous amount of amazing candidate applications that came to our organization. So over the course of the last 2 months, we were able to meet as a board and meet with our leadership, with our staff, and be able to narrow down an amazing slate of 3 candidates that you all will vote on tonight. So if I have our candidates come and stand, come to the floor as we call your name and give the group a little bit about your background. So the first candidate who is going to be nominated to our slate today is Mitch Manley. Okay. So we are so fortunate to be able to have Mitch, who is a fellow Detroiter, to be able to serve as part of the leadership for the Transportation Riders United. Mitch is an avid, dedicated volunteer for Transportation Riders United. He also is a regular bus rider, so he makes the jaunt from his home in Detroit all the way up to his law practice in Birmingham. And so, given that experience that he's been able to have, he brings a rich and robust rider's perspective through both counties, through multiple transit providers, and really being able to help us understand what some of the issues are that riders are facing on the ground on a day-to-day basis. And so we are so excited to be able to have him and to be able to nominate him for election to the board tonight. All right. Next, I'd also like to welcome another fellow Detroiter, Farah Guthin, to the stage. We are so excited. So we are so excited to have her application. When it came across my desk, I think I said, "Oh my God, Megan, how do we find her? She's amazing." Farah brings to us such a tremendous passion for transportation advocacy and also a very intricate understanding of transportation needs, not only here in the Metro Detroit area, but also globally. She brings to us expertise in public policy, having obtained her master's in public administration from Harvard University. She's currently an entrepreneur. Working at the intersection of transportation technology, where she works with organizations such as New Lab and TechTown, where she is currently working on platforms to be able to provide a one-way method for you to be able to pay your fare across multiple vendors. And so we're so excited to be able to have her bring her expertise to TRU. And last but certainly not least, I would like to be able to welcome Adam Goodman to the stage. We're so very excited to be able to have Adam to be able to come and be nominated and bring him forward to you all to vote on, to be able to vote on his election to our board this evening. Talk about being tongue-tied this evening. We are so fortunate to be able to have him bring his expertise in business development and also a keen expertise in understanding what it means to be able to live in two worlds. One that does not have access to transit and one that has a really robust, rich access to transit. Growing up in Bloomfield Hills and currently a resident of Ann Arbor, he also brings us a connection to Washtenaw County, which we have really been wanting for a very long time. And so we're so excited to be able to bring him to the group to be able to vote on for this evening. This amazing slate of 3 candidates that we're bringing to vote tonight will be able to serve for up to 3 years in their first term. And if I can ask a current paid TRU member to be able to move for a motion to elect this amazing slate of candidates, do I have a member that would like to make a motion?
So moved.
Second? All right, so I have a motion to elect Adam Goodman, Farah Guthin, and Mitchell Manley to the new 2024 Board of Transportation Riders United. Congratulations and welcome. Please stick around after our evening concludes and meet our new board members. Have an opportunity to connect with some of our current board members. We'd love to be able to meet with you and on this.
How about an all in favor say aye?
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. I'm like, I want all of them to just join right away and have them all agree. So, so for our current pay members, we'll have agreement with this motion, can I have an aye? Aye. Do I have any nays? Abstentions? Motion is passed. Welcome, officially. Now I'd like to bring Megan back to close us out.
So much exciting news, so many awesome people, so much happening tonight. I really appreciate everyone, and I think we got a lot of inspiration. We heard a lot of from both the agencies and from the legislators that we need to come together. They need our help to build the voice, to build the call, to demand more and better transit. Thank you guys, you can go sit. But I want to encourage, I do want to leave you with three parting requests. One, as Deb said, all of this work that TRU does take funding, and certainly thank you if you were able to donate to come tonight. If you've been a member, please consider what sort of level can you contribute. We've got some amazing monthly givers and people who are making major investments in TRU's work. Can that be you? Please think about what sort of support you can offer. Second, we certainly want, as they said, we need to talk to our legislators. We are in fact organizing a whole team of meetings with local constituents and their legislators. We'd love to give you talking points, to join you in that meeting, to help make that happen. So if you didn't sign up, well, watch for an email. I don't know if we got everybody signing in, but watch for an email in the next week and sign up. Please join us in meeting with your legislators. And as they said, do you have friends, neighbors, colleagues, co-workers, bus buddies who can get involved? We need to really grow the transit. We need to really grow team transit to make a transformational difference. And then get involved, stay involved. We've got a volunteer meeting coming up, I believe February 8th. Well, watch for an email on that as well. We'd love to invite more people to get together with that volunteer team and explore more ways to get involved. We got some exciting stuff planned this year, including some surveys of bus stops. Where are the bus stops and intersections doing great? And where could they use some work? And as we heard, that's something our TA is going to be working on, so let's help shape that. There's some huge decisions coming on funding. Let's make sure to reach out and push for funding too. So please continue to support TRU. Please join us in speaking out for transit. And I had a third thing, but I guess it must be, let's go enjoy some more nachos and chips and